film exhibitions at the George Eastman Museum. And I know that we all want to get to the movie. I just have a few things to say. I want to talk a little bit about the festival. It was about 6 years ago, last month, that fellow co-director Deborah Stoiber and I finally convinced our curator that we needed to put together a nitrate weekend. We had had the projector since 1951. That's when our theater opened. And we had always maintained the ability to play nitrate film. We have a wonderful collection of nitrate prints at the museum, and we have a school, the L. Jeffrey Selznick School of Film Preservation, which both Ben and I have graduated from, which teaches the next generation of archivists and projectionists exactly what they need to do. So it just made sense for all of us to get together and put this weekend together. The idea was that if we could get a bunch of nitrate prints together on a weekend, we could attract people from all over the world. And that's exactly what's happened. We've gotten prints from Japan. We played in Ozu a couple of years ago. We played a Mexican film. We've got prints from Sweden, Norway, Switzerland, all over the world. And people come from all over the world. There's a woman from Thailand that travels almost every year. Usually she brings one or two of her colleagues from the archive there to come just to view nitrate film. So you are sitting in a place where you're having a very special experience. And we are so proud to have the Egyptian Theater being one of those venues that we can bring these prints to and share them with the world, because this is the original cinematic experience. Okay. So Grant and I were talking before the film started. It still hasn't started yet. But this is actually the only color print that we have here this weekend. And I know some of the older people that are going to understand this, but I do see some young people in the audience, so if you let me take a few minutes to explain this. They were not using color emulsion back in the nitrate era. There was I know you've heard of the Technicolor 3-strip process. This was actually, this guy likes it. This was actually a camera which used 3 strips of film to record the information, and those 3 strips were then used, those negatives were used to make matrices. Much like lithography, they would be dipped into complementary yellow, cyan, and magenta dyes in order to actually lay the dye onto the film. So what you're going to see tonight is the actual dyes that were on the film originally. And this is why the nitrate film, the color films, tend not to fade, or not fade as quickly, because it's not an emulsion that's fading or deteriorating. It's actually the dye that's on the film. So the only way it's going to fade or change colors if that dye flakes off. And the archives, the Academy Film Archive in UCLA here in town are doing the same thing. You keep that film cool and dry to make it projectable for as long as possible. So the archivists around the world have been doing a great job, and this is our print. We're very proud to bring it here. So I want you to, So I want you to think about actually some of the shots that you're going to see. This is late nitrate. This is 1950, and nitrate stopped production in 1951. So this was by the time the camera movement, camera placement had advanced. And Christopher Chalice is actually the director of cinematography on here, working with Powell and Pressburger. And some of the shots that he gets are just extraordinary when you think about this huge camera mounted on some places. I won't tell you exactly where. Use your eyes to figure that out. But it's some really striking photography. Now, we think about Technicolor imbibition, particularly in relation to those late 30s films. Wizard of Oz, Gone with the Wind. And as complicated as that process was, they made it more complex, because you'll see a credit on here, Natalie Kalmus. She is the ex-wife of Herbert Kalmus, who is one of the founders of the Technicolor Corporation. And she has over 300 credits on IMDb, primarily as a color consultant. What she would do is work with the filmmakers to decide exactly what palette to use for these dyes in the Technicolor process, because it's not the same. If you look at Nothing Sacred from 1937, it's not the same as Wizard of Oz in 1939, not the same as Gone to Earth in 1950. They were changing the sets of dyes depending on what effect they were trying to create. So, as complicated as it was, they made it more complex by using different dyes every time. They were customized to what they were trying to get out of it. And a little bit about the film itself. So, Powell and Pressburger, we have played several Powell and Pressburger films in our festival. There was Black Narcissus, Tales of Hoffman, and of course Gone to Earth. This was actually our blind date last year. Most of the titles in our festival we keep secret. This allows us to work longer and harder to get the best films for the festival. It's going to be in June this year, not May. And we keep the last film a secret all the way until it hits the screen. This really paid off for us in year 2 when we got a silent feature. It was actually coming from Russia to the Library of Congress. Took a pit stop in Rochester on the way there. It was a print of Ramona, so that's the only silent feature that we've had in our Nitrate Picture Show so far. So we've had several Powell and Pressburgers, and we have several David O. Selznick films as well. Daniel Selznick actually donated David's collection, his Nitrate collection, to us. And of course, you're going to see many Jennifer Jones films in there, since Jennifer Jones left her husband for David O. Selznick, and he put her in several productions. Now, he did have control over this production with Powell and Pressburger in Great Britain, and it was shot on location in Great Britain. However, once the film was finished, he didn't like it. So what he did was he took Powell and Pressburger to court to change it. He lost. But he found out that he still had the rights in America to do what he wanted with it. So what he did was he cut about half an hour out of the film. He added some scenes, particularly scenes, the most infamous scenes have Jennifer Jones holding a stuffed fox, obviously. It's like the American Sniper baby. And it obviously didn't fit, and it didn't work nearly as well. The film flopped in the United States. But what we have here is the print that David saw before he wanted to change it.
Wow.
So this is the original as it was seen in the UK. I urge you to be here for all 5 shows this weekend. Right now, please enjoy Gone to Earth.